welcome to the final session of our Philippians series. We really hope that there have been things that have been thought-provoking for you as we've journeyed through these past few sessions. We're going to be looking at Philippians 3 and 4, but just focusing in on a particular passage, which we'll introduce shortly. But we've got a conversation starter for you just as a way into today. And the question is this: are there any outward signs or badges that would identify you as being part of a group or an organisation, either currently or in the past? Ruth, anything for you?
I can't think of it. Are you thinking like bumper stickers or something you'd wear or something like that?
Any of that, yeah.
I can't think that I've any apart from, yeah. How about you? Have you got any?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Go on.
So picture this: I'm 7 years old.
Yes.
It's quite a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
And I had a little brown bobble hat and a brown dress with a yellow neck thing.
A little tie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you a brownie?
I was a brownie.
Excellent.
Absolutely,
Excellent.
I was. So guys, have a conversation with the people in your group about any identifiers that you might have or have had in the past. So we hope you've had some good conversations about your badges or ways of identifying whether you're part of a group or an organisation. So we'd like to ask you, in your group, however you usually would read the Bible passage, to do so now. And the passage is Philippians chapter 3 and the first 11 verses. So Ruth, you and I have had quite a long conversation around this passage and thinking about the directions that our conversations could take us in, and there are many directions we could go down. But my first question to you really is this: why is Paul so hung up on flesh?
I wanted to ask exactly the same question, because all the time it feels like Paul talks about flesh all the time. There's about thorn in the flesh or all sorts of things. But actually, I think it's really interesting that in lots and lots of other passages, when we talk about, it's not a good word, is it? Flesh.
The flesh.
But actually, a lot of the times talking about things to do with sex, basically, and in other parts where it's mentioned, but actually it's really interesting that it's not to do with that here. Well, not quite anyway, really, is it?
No.
Because it's talking about something very, very specific and something very traditional for the Jewish people. So in terms of talking about circumcision.
Yes.
So it's a good job as two women talking about this today.
I know Sam would usually be on the sofa now.
Yeah,
but
maybe
he's
we
not,
should have made
funnily
him do
enough.
this. Yeah, well.
Yeah. So what is Paul saying about circumcision here? What's going on in this passage?
So I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because he in this passage, he's basically saying that a lot of the Jews traditionally would have used their circumcision almost like a badge of honor. We're talking about kind of ways of identifying who we are. Actually, for Jews at the time especially, being circumcised was like this badge of honor. I'm really hoping that it wasn't a badge of honor that they showed everybody all the time. I don't think that would be deeply appropriate at all. I really, really hoping not. But actually, he's kind of saying that kind of traditionally that the Jews would say, you know, this is my proof that I'm a Jew, and it's like this, like a badge of honor.
Really important rite of passage.
Absolutely.
And still is for the Jewish people today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still a really important way of identifying themselves as being Jews.
Yeah.
But then, obviously, as non-Jews were coming to faith, Gentile converts, then there was a group of the Jewish people who were trying, in a sense, to impose that circumcision
Yeah.
on non-Jews as being a really important identifier for them too. But Paul speaks into this, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel really sorry for the Gentiles that were kind of going, oh my goodness, I've got to be circumcised. Because obviously it would be done as a baby, which blessedly they'd have forgotten about as they grew up.
Yeah.
So for Gentile converts to then all of a sudden be kind of like going, you're basically saying that we need to be circumcised is probably instilled quite a lot of panic. But actually, Paul's really clear on this in this passage, that saying actually this is not, that's not the badge of honor that we need, that we want people to have. Actually, that's not circumcision isn't a Christian badge of honor, and therefore is not needed, because that is about flesh, getting back to that word again, isn't it? And not about the heart or the spirit in that way.
Yeah. Okay. So as we look down the passage, so there in verses 4 to 6, we have Paul kind of talking about, he has every reason for confidence in the flesh. Yeah. So he's talking about his Jewish markers then. But then he goes on to say, if anyone has any reason to be confident in the flesh, I have. Circumcised on the 8th day, a member of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew born of the Hebrews, as to the law, a Pharisee, as to zeal, a persecutor of the church, as to righteousness under the law, blameless. So he's saying he has really important badges of honor from his past.
Absolutely.
But then he goes on to say, if anyone has any reason to be confident in the flesh, it's me. But actually, he then reflects that those things mean nothing, in a sense, because he's found Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So he's saying that whatever gains I had, I count those as worthless. Yeah. Because of Jesus Christ. More than that, I regard everything as lost because of the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things. I regard them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ. So Paul is saying that those badges that once meant so much to him, that identified him in such an important way, now are worthless compared to what he now has in knowing Christ and being known by Christ.
Absolutely. And so that whole thing of this, the physicality of religion, I guess, becoming pointless and just not pointless, but kind of disregarding all of that, because actually the recognition that head and heart are so much more important than anything that we can, mark our bodies or wear or do any of those things.
Yeah, because we can wear badges of honor, but we might not live the life associated with them. So I was a brownie, as I've told you. I wasn't a great brownie, if I'm honest. So, I don't know if you remember, but brownies used to have to put things in their pocket. So I had to, some of you will remember this very clearly if you were a brownie around the same time as me. You had to have a folded up hanky in your pocket every week. You had to have 5 pence. The reason you had to have 5 pence is because that's how much you had to make a phone call. No, to make a phone call.
Oh, really?
In an old-style phone box,
yeah.
5 pence. You had to have a pencil in your pocket. Health and safety now, you wouldn't be allowed that now in case it stabs you. And other things. And I was never very good at making sure I had my pockets like they should be. So I might have been a brownie by identification, but I wasn't necessarily a good one.
Yeah.
So actually what we're finding here is it's not always about what's on the outside or your identifiers. It's about what's going on. And for Paul here, he's very much saying it's all about relationship with Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
And the outworking of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really interesting then is that some of us, I guess, choose to wear a cross, don't we? As a sign, or we might have a fish on our car, if we're a good driver, to kind of have this outward sign that says, hey, I'm a Christian. But so so I guess the question then is, what do badges of honor really look like for us, and in terms of the outworking of our faith, and do they match up? Because actually, if Paul's kind of saying, the relationship with Jesus is the most important thing, what does that look like in its outworking?
Yes.
And so, rather than kind of going, well, I'm wearing a cross and therefore I'm a Christian, we meet people who say, well, I was baptized, so therefore I'm a Christian. I'm like, well, is that true, or is there more to it? And actually, what Paul's kind of saying is very much that there's a whole outworking of faith that's got a match with that badge of honor.
Absolutely, and that's really important because people will, in a sense, assess or even judge our faith on how we live it.
Absolutely.
So we in claiming the name Christ and claiming to belong to Christ, as Paul is here in Philippians, in a sense then represent Christ and the Christian faith.
Yeah.
It's a high calling.
It is. It is.
So we hope that there's been some things that have just sparked off your thoughts. There's going to be some questions that will appear on your screen, and we hope that you'll have some great conversations around those.